Welcome to ACOS, All Kinds of Stuff, the podcast that, just like its host, has a hard time focusing on just one thing. So we talk about a little bit of everything. Glad you're here. Let's get this party started.
Welcome to ACOS, SMF. This is your host, David Ritchie. This will be kind of a quick one. I think I get to rambling and I don't always abide by that. But this will be a two-parter because we got the Super Bowl coming up. So I wanted to do a Super Bowl before the game show and a Super Bowl review after the game show. So we've got the Rams and the Bengals playing this year. Now, you'll learn if you listen to this show that I'm a much bigger college football fan than pro football fan, but I have become more of a pro football fan than I used to be over the last few years. And just to go ahead and throw it out there, the team, everybody always asks me, who is my favorite team? Of course, I lived in Texas my whole life. I lived in Fort Worth, Texas for a little while. So I'm guessing everybody can guess who my favorite team is. And you would be probably wrong because, as I tell all my students, most of y'all know by now I'm a principal, I pull for my favorite team each week is whoever's playing the Dallas Cowboys. And I've always been like that. But what's weird about it, it's a very bad relationship because the only game I look forward to watching each week is also the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't really understand it. My dad kind of raised me that way. My dad was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He still is. My mom and dad had a golden retriever named Steeler. I think Steeler lived for probably normal golden retriever life length, 10-ish years. After Steeler passed away, my parents bought them another golden retriever puppy. And they named him Steeler. Not Steeler Part 2, not Steeler the sequel, just Steeler, which I guess is a good way to not have to replace any of the names on any of the stuff. But, and of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Dallas Cowboys always had big rivals growing up. And I remember getting a Pittsburgh Steeler helmet for Christmas one time, but I was never a huge Steelers fan. I was anti-Steelers. I still like them. But I guess that's where my dislike for the Dallas Cowboys started. And then, again, when you grow up in Texas, everybody's a Dallas Cowboy fan. So it's just too easy to be a Dallas Cowboys fan. As a head coach, all of my assistants, because we would work on Sundays, all of my assistants would be glued to the radio. Of course, now you could just watch it on your phone. But they would be glued to the radio, or somebody would be sending them text updates, or there were those that would record it and wouldn't want any updates so they could watch it when they would get home. But I was always keeping a watch on the scores, and if they were getting beat, they would know by my expressions or my smart aleck remarks. But anyway, so that's who I yell for, whoever's playing the Dallas Cowboys. And then I also like to pull for teams that have a lot of Florida State guys on them. But when you ask me who I'm pulling for in this year's Super Bowl, my answer is I'm pulling for a really good game because I do not like or dislike the Bengals or the Rams. And I know for a fact when the Super Bowl ends, the football season is officially over. So if I had my perfect game, it would go into overtime, and after overtime, it'd still be tied. And I don't know what they do in the NFL if after overtime it's tied. Maybe we go into second and overtime and third. I would just like it to last as long as it could and be a really good game. And if that's the case, I'll be happy. And as the game goes tomorrow, I'm sure there's going to come a point where I'm kind of pulling for one team or the other. But going into it, I'm really not. I like Joe Burrow. I think he's fun. I heard somebody say the other day that they don't like Joe Burrow because he's cocky. And my answer to that is if you were his age and you were a quarterback in the NFL with his skill set, you better be pretty confident. And I think cocky just kind of happens. I think if you weren't, you're probably not in the Super Bowl, and you probably didn't win a national championship at LSU. So I can't fault somebody for dressing with the sunglasses, and he's got that diamond necklace, but again, put yourself in his shoes at that age with that amount of money and being that good. I have a hard time believing that I'd still be driving my Corolla just to prove that I wasn't cocky. So I got no beef with Joe Burrow. I would say that I like Matthew Stafford too, though. And, Matthew Stafford's a Texas kid, which honestly, that's not why I would pull for him. But, he did play for the Detroit Lions for a really long time. And I do like the fact that he played for the Lions and they never really, I'm not a Detroit Lions expert, but they couldn't have made the playoffs once or twice, probably tops. If he ever won a playoff game, I would not think it's more than one, maybe two, but I'm guessing it's 1 or 0. And so I'm sure as fan bases are, Matthew Stafford started getting blamed for a lot of their losses. So it is nice to see, that he goes somewhere else and then immediately leads them to the Super Bowl. I think the Rams defense is pretty solid, but I think the Bengals is too. I just think it's going to be a fun game. I like games. I do believe early in the week the Rams were favored. I want to say it was by like 3 or 3.5. I could probably pull that up on my phone as I talk. But I get the feeling that it's going to be a really good game. I think the Bengals will find a way to be in the game, much like they did against the Chiefs. That thing was pretty much done ski. And then, so the Rams are favored by 4. I sure wouldn't bet on it. Not that I'm a bettor. Not that I have enough money to bet, but I sure wouldn't bet on the Rams and Bengals with a 4-point spread. I got no idea which way that goes. And that leads me to always say that I'm always amazed at how close the Las Vegas, whoever does that, the people that set those overs, unders, and spreads, I'm always amazed at how close they are. But I just hope it's a good game. So, what are we going to talk about with the Super Bowl today, and what will we review after the Super Bowl? Well, I will tell you the things I'm most excited about. I am not a Super Bowl party guy. My sister is 3 or 4 years older than me, and we both went to Texas Tech, and I would go to her Super Bowl parties, and she could care less about the game. And I never liked it because I just want to watch the game. My favorite thing about the Super Bowl is to sit in the couch with either just myself or 1 or 2 other people. If I have the boys, they're always invited, so they don't count. But I don't want 30 people around that are probably not Bengals fans, because let's be real, if you live in Lubbock, Texas, and you tell me you're a Bengals fan, I'm probably going to call you a liar and a bandwagoner. Now, I can see you being a Rams fan before I call you a Bengals fan, but if I start seeing a lot of people wearing Bengals coats and they act like they've been a Bengals fan since forever, I'm gonna have to call them liars. So I like to watch it in a quiet room. I will order a pizza, and I'm excited about that. That's one of the things we'll review, because I try to say I eat pretty healthy is kind of true and kind of not true. I have been eating M&Ms all day, but I usually do a pretty good job of, 1, not eating out, and 2, like I told y'all before, I cook a whole lot of chicken and just eat that. I try not to eat a lot of junk food, but for the Super Bowl, I'm ordering a pizza, and Pizza Hut knows I have been starving myself, and that's all we have here right now is a Pizza Hut. We've got a Domino's coming soon, but it's not here yet. But we got Pizza Hut coming, and they know I've been eating better and starving, and they keep advertising the spicy marinara, I think is what it's called. I'm a spicy food junkie, and so, yes, I'm getting that. And I have even watched, I'm so hungry, I've been watching YouTube reviews of people eating it, and everybody says it's delicious, so I cannot wait. So we will talk about my spicy marinara pizza. That's about all the food I'll have. I used to get wings and chips and dips, but I'm telling you, if I have a pizza, I'm probably going to eat about 4 pieces and be full. So that's probably about all we have. Maybe we'll have a few other things here and there, but that's something we'll review. We'll review the commercials, because I'm still a Super Bowl commercial guy. I'm doing all my work today and homework today, so that tomorrow I'll watch all the pregame. I know in the past it usually starts like 1 or 2. The game usually starts 5:20-ish, 5:30-ish. So I'll watch all the pregame. But once the Super Bowl starts, I will watch all the commercials. I will stay glued to the TV. They're not as good, in my opinion, as they used to be. We will have a couple really big winners, and then we will have some that try really hard to replicate the old Super Bowl commercial success of the past. But we'll talk about a little bit of a review of which commercials we liked the most, which ones we liked the least. we'll talk about halftime because, okay, I think the Prince halftime, because I'm a Prince junkie, will be there. There will never be a halftime better than that. I know a lot of people want to say Michael Jackson or maybe when Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson did their thing, but I think most Super Bowls are pretty forgettable. Prince's was not. My favorite story of that is, if you'll remember, it was pouring down rain, and the people that put on the halftime show were scared because Prince, I'm sure, like Joey B, his ego is probably pretty big, and they were afraid because of the rain that he would cancel or not want to perform. And of course, I think it's famous for people like me who are Prince junkies. When they came to Prince and asked him, "Are you going to be able to perform tonight?" His answer was, "Is there any way you can make it rain harder?" Which to me, that's like, I tell my teachers, and that's like game time. Let's go. Can you make it rain any harder? Heck yes, I'm ready to go is pretty much what Prince was saying. And then, of course, he gets out there and just gets to perform Purple Rain in the rain at the Super Bowl. I can't imagine anything better than that. But if there is going to be something better than that, it might be tomorrow night, because the other thing about me is I love my 90s rap. I was a Public Enemy guy. I actually used to wear a clock. My mom would tell me not to, so I would hide it outside and put it on when I left. I went on a date with a clock to the movie theater with Eve Clark. I'm sure she does not remember that, and I'm sure she probably tried to forget it immediately. We were sophomores in high school, and she went on a date to the movie theater with a dude wearing a clock because he knew what time it was. But I was Run DMC, Cool Mo D, and then, of course, when all this other stuff started coming on, I was in my late high school, early college, but absolutely did I love my Dr. Dre, and did I love my Snoop Dogg. I'm an Eminem fan, but not to the extent that a lot of people are. There were one or two albums that I thought were greatness. I've read stories about how good of a guy Eminem actually is in real life, which makes me happy, because I think we read too much about how celebrities and stars are actually kind of jerky. So it's nice to know that he's, at least from what I've read, a pretty solid dude. Mary J. Blige, I think she'll be fun, but I'm honestly most excited for Kendrick Lamar. I'm a huge Kendrick Lamar fan. So maybe if in perfect world, he performs at halftime of the Super Bowl, and then he would finally drop his most recent album that I have no doubt that he's been working on, because it's been a bit. I was in Fort Worth when his last one came out, so it's been a bit. So we'll talk about commercials. We'll talk about my pizza. We'll talk about how the halftime show was, and we'll talk about the game. And, I always want to kind of look up and see where all the players came from, college-wise, because I like knowing college football stuff. Let's start with the most important one. So we got 3 FSU players playing in tomorrow night's game. We got 2 superstars and then one. And I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched the Bengals a whole lot. They're not on TV just a whole lot out here in West Texas. But I am a big Cam Akers fan. Plays running back for the Rams. He's pretty recent FSU graduate. And I don't think I'm betting, because the Super Bowl is like the Olympics. I don't know if anybody's been watching the Winter Olympics, but all Olympics. Man, you talk about having a whole lot of stories about everything under the sun. When somebody is snowboarding, they're going to tell everything about his childhood and how, man, he used to have a really hard time eating Fruity Pebbles. But once he found the best milk in the world, he could finally eat Fruity Pebbles without any pain, and his life was all good. We'll probably see a story about Cam Akers tomorrow, but I don't think there's been enough said that he suffered such Achilles injury. And all of a sudden, he sits the whole year. I want to say he started playing just a few minutes or a few snaps the last couple games, and then has just gained more and more and more carries as the playoffs gone on. And I really haven't heard anybody talk too much about that. Think about that. Klay Thompson, he was out for a calendar year, and maybe Cam Akers was. I'm not remembering when he got hurt. Kevin Durant, those guys. I do not think being a running back with a bad Achilles would be an easy thing to do. So I don't know that enough has been made that this young kid has come back from such a devastating injury to already be pretty much playing full force out there for the Rams. So I'm a big Cam Akers fan. We also have on the Rams, we got Jalen Ramsey, whom I was a giant fan of when he was at Florida State. I still remember when he asked Charlie Ward if he could wear his jersey, because one of these days we'll talk about my favorite Knowles of all time, but I think we would all be amiss if we did not have Charlie Ward up there at the top or close to the top. You know, I've seen things about Jalen Ramsey over the years that you think you know about people, and then you see something and you're not really sure about it. But, you know, what do I say? Let's be optimistic. I do think he's a pretty good guy. I just think it's hard to judge these guys because the amount of money and the amount of fame that these guys have is not something that I will ever be able to relate to. So for me to pass judgment on a few character flaws here and there, I don't think that's real fair. So the Rams got 2 Florida State Seminoles with Cam Akers and Jalen Ramsey. But the Bengals, they got one of the ones I really enjoyed watching when he was at FSU, and another that's fairly recent FSU football player, but they have Auden Tate playing receiver for him. And I don't know how much he plays, and I don't know how good he's done because, I mean, I haven't checked the stats, but I'm telling you, I haven't watched the Bengals that much. I remember seeing him on one of the 2 times I watched him this year and being, oh, cool. I'm glad he made it. But I hope he has a really good game tomorrow night. So the Rams have 2 Knowles and the Bengals have 1. But I found this article that talked about how many players came from the different colleges that are playing in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to kind of go through some of this with you because I thought it was pretty interesting. First off, there's 2 schools that have 5. LSU has 5 players playing tomorrow night in the Super Bowl. And obviously, the biggin is Joe Burrow. And then the other biggin by name is probably Odell Beckham. But I don't know that he'll have the most effect as some of those other LSU guys. Although I bet he ends up having a pretty good night. Cooper Kupp fan, by the way. And I think that Odell benefits from Cooper Kupp. I've read a lot of stuff about Cooper Kupp this year. And, you know, anybody that puts in the works. Okay, so let's be real. Most of these guys are uber talented. Okay? I always think about LeBron James because LeBron James is physically gifted and talented. I could put in 4 times as much work as LeBron James ever has in his life, which would be crazy because I really think, and I'm not a LeBron huge fan. I think he's really good, but I'm just using him as an example. I'm betting, I know for a fact, those dudes work hard on their game. They work hard to stay in shape. They eat. I mean, they go above and beyond to be ready and to be who they are. But what I'm saying is I could take that and multiply it by 100 and I still wouldn't be able to play in the NBA. Okay? Because I'm not 6 foot whatever. Well, I'm 5'11", so I'm 6 foot nothing. Like Rudy, 6 foot nothing, or what do they say, 5 foot nothing? I am 5 foot nothing. I told somebody the other day I'm 5'11", and I said, guys, remember I taught English. Yes, I'm a principal, and I told him, I said, 2 more inches and I would have been 6 foot. And he said, Rich, that'd be 1 more inch because there's no such thing as 5'12". 5'12" is 6 foot. But you know, we always tell kids if you work hard, you can be anything, and we would like to believe that, but working hard does not make me 6'10". You know, so if you go back to what I was talking about with these NFL guys, they are talented. There's a surface level of talent that is above the average guy. That being said, some of them do have to put in a lot more work. They don't have to, they just do. And I think, and Cooper Kupp's not going to be the only one that plays tomorrow night that's worked his tail off, but I think he has worked really hard to be as good as he is. And that dude has had a heck of a year. So I think it is cool. It makes me a fan of him to see the work paying off. All right, so going back to what we were talking about, the LSU's got 5. I got off on Cooper Kupp. The other team that has 5 now, I'll say this, but I'm not going to respect this. But the other team that has 5 is the Florida Gators. So we're just going to say that comment. We're going to move on to the rest of the discussion because I'm not going to reward the Florida Gators with any admiration whatsoever. All right, and then we've got a few teams that have 4. Start off, we got another ACC team in Clemson. which that should not surprise us that they have 4. It surprises me a little that Florida had 5. LSU's coming off. I'm betting all 5 of LSU's. I bet all 5 of them were on that national championship team from a few years ago. Because if you listened to me last episode, I think LSU is that team was kind of an anomaly for LSU. So I bet most of them were on that team, if not all of them. Clemson, it doesn't surprise me that they have 4. I feel like Clemson is where Florida State used to be, where they're just getting guys drafted right and left. So that doesn't surprise me. Georgia has 4. That doesn't surprise me. Ohio State has 4. That doesn't surprise me. Oklahoma has 4. That doesn't surprise me. Washington has 4. That does surprise me. Let me read those teams again that have 4. And again, if this was a pop quiz and I said, tell me which one of these teams you don't think belongs in this, the question is, which one of these teams does not have 4 people in the Super Bowl? And I said Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Washington. Well, I would think everybody's going to say Washington, but they do. So I think that's pretty cool that Washington has 4. And one team is missing from that. When you say Clemson and Georgia and Ohio State and Oklahoma, I guarantee you when I was reading this the first time, I just assumed Alabama would be in that. I'll be honest, I assumed Alabama would have the most players in it because I feel like those guys have been hands down having the most really good players drafted over the last few years. But Alabama's sitting at 3. So there's 3 teams at 3. Actually 4, because this media source, which is CBS, obviously did not do all their homework because they are missing the most important one. But here's the teams they have with 3 playing in the Super Bowl. Alabama, makes sense. The other 2 don't make a ton of sense. A&M has 3. Okay, so that makes more sense than the next one I'm going to say. But A&M has been better the last few years, but it still kind of surprises me that they're high up right now on the amount of players they have playing in the Super Bowl. But the other one that has 3 is Purdue. So that, again, I think that's kind of out of place a little bit. Washington having 4, Purdue having 3. Then it says 2 players each, and that's where they have Florida State. So my guess is they forgot about Auden Tate, and they remembered about Ramsey, and they remembered about Akers. So we can bump Florida State up there into the 3. Okay, so if we did that, 5, 4, and 3, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That means there's 11 teams that include Florida State that have at least 3 teams playing in the Super Bowl. I'll just rattle these off really quick. Teams that have 2 players each, we got Cincinnati, makes sense. Colorado, actually makes more sense than you would think because I think they've had some really good receivers and some other people over the last couple years. Delaware, shocker. Florida Atlantic, they have Florida State. Obviously, they actually have 3. Iowa, makes sense. Maryland, makes sense. Michigan State, NC State, Notre Dame, Penn State, all make sense. Pittsburgh is up there. Got us another ACC guy. Stanford, TCU, Utah, Wake Forest, Wisconsin. So it's interesting for me to read all these because if you're a college football junkie, you're pretty much reading on all this teams that are pretty good with the occasional surprise. Like Washington being in the same group as Oklahoma, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson. Purdue being in the same group as Alabama. Like I think this whole group belongs. Delaware surprises me a little bit. Pittsburgh surprises me a little, but not as much as at Delaware. All the other ones to me belong because you may not be talking about the teams that are going to finish top 10 every year, but you're talking about teams that have been putting pretty good products out on the football field every single year. All right, and then the last little set here, 1 player each. We got Arkansas, Auburn, Azusa Pacific, Baylor, Boise State, Boston College, Brown, Concordia State College, let me say that whole one again. This is a long one. Concordia State College, St. Paul. I was trying to separate Concordia State College and St. Paul with 2 different schools, but that's all one school. Concordia State College, St. Paul. East Carolina, Eastern Washington, Iowa State, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Oregon, Oregon State, Rutgers, South Carolina, Southern Miss, Chattanooga, Texas, boo, Longhorns, don't care for them. Tulane, UAB, Utah State, South Florida, Virginia, West Virginia, Western Kentucky, and Wyoming. And I think that once you drop to one player, it's not real surprising because I think any team could have that one really good player. I always remember we had a kid that played well after me at Sweetwater, but he played for my dad. His name was David Terrell, and he went to UTEP. And I don't know how many players off the UTEP team made it to the NFL, but he did. You know, UTEP is not a football power, but when any of these guys could have one player at least get to the NFL. All right, so here's a table breaking it down by conference. All right, here we go. So I'm sure we can all guess who the top conference as far as having the amount of players in the Super Bowl is, and it is the SEC. And I am one of those guys that will always tell you the SEC is overrated, but mostly it's because I just don't like Florida. The second most players come from the Big Ten. So the SEC has 25 players in the Super Bowl. That's pretty impressive. The Big Ten has 21. So that's, what did I say from Ohio State? That's 4 from Ohio State. When you think about the SEC, you got Florida with 5 and LSU with 5, and they got 25 total players. So 10 of them are coming from 2 schools. ACC, we got 14 playing in the Super Bowl. Pac-12 has 12. It fits. I guess they had to do that on purpose. The Pac-12 has 12. So the Big 12 obviously has, 11. Tricked you. The Big 12 has 11. FCS or lower has 7. So the AAC has 5. Conference USA has 5. Mountain West has 5. And Independent has 2. I just think that's pretty cool. My favorite, and I don't know if it's Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football because I get confused, but the one that has the players introduce themselves on the live as the game's already started, and the Washington Commanders offense is out there, so they let all of those starters introduce themselves. That's my favorite thing, 'cause I like to see where guys played from. Now, I think it's pretty cool over the last years that some of them have quit saying their college, but they've started saying their high school. I've actually heard some of them say their elementary school, which I think that would be really cool to be an elementary teacher and have your school shouted out on Monday or Sunday Night Football. So that's a little rundown of who else playing tomorrow night. Who am I picking? Man, I don't know. If I had to bet my Corolla, I would, take away the 4 points. I don't have to deal with any of that because I'm just betting with this imaginary person sitting next to me. I would probably pick the Rams. But I don't think if the Bengals won and I had to hand over my keys tomorrow night, I would be a bit surprised. I hope it's not a blowout either way. I don't think it will be a blowout either way. I think both teams could win. Both teams could keep it a game. I can see one of the teams getting up by a couple scores and the other one coming back late and making it a game. I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be a really close game, and I'm a winner. Here's how I win tomorrow night. 1, my spicy marinara pizza is all that I've made it out that it's going to be in my head. 2, halftime show is a lot of fun, and they don't drop any cuss words and have to get bleeped because I've told both my sons over, they're living in Lubbock, I've told them make sure you watch because you're going to see my guys. 3, that we have some really good commercials to watch and go back and kind of rewatch. I'm all for the funny ones. I don't love it when they're trying to pull my heartstrings. I would rather see some funny stuff. I hope to see some good movie trailers in there because I'm a movie guy, and typically if there's a good movie coming out, a lot of times you see the trailer during the Super Bowl. And then the other way I win is number 4, if it's just a really good game up to the very, very, very end. And another way that we could all win, so I'm going to be really upset if one of the Bengals score, especially the running back, and they don't do the icky shuffle. If they have not talked about that and said, guys, if we score tomorrow night, we got to do the icky shuffle. then I'm going to be very upset at the history research that the Cincinnati Bengals, especially running back players, have done. So, guys, enjoy the Super Bowl. I'm excited. We will come back. It probably won't be Sunday night or Monday night because I have another basketball game, but sometime next week we'll do a Super Bowl review. And hope you'll all enjoy the game, and thank you for listening to ACOS SMF Sports, Mostly Football.
You have been listening to ACOS Podcast, All Kinds of Stuff, with your host, David Ritchie. And I sincerely want to thank you for stopping by and giving us a chance. The music you hear now and the music you hear at the beginning of our podcast was done by my 13-year-old son, Hayden Ritchie. And everything I do is inspired by not just Hayden, but my other son, Logan Ritchie, as well. You can find me at Twitter, at ACOS Podcast. That is capital A, capital K, capital O, capital S, capital P, and everything else is in little letters, at ACOS Podcast. Feel free to follow me, reach out with any questions you have. Have a great week. Thank you for listening.